Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of what will hopefully turn out to be a series of episodes on um, music and different topics of music. And today's topic being performance or stage anxiety. I have with me my really good friend Urta, who is a colleague and a good friend from our days at music college. And we're just going to have an informal talk about our experiences as performers and how we dealt with stage anxiety as well. So, Urta, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Natalie. I was really happy when you asked me to do this with you because we always talk about these things a lot with you especially, and I thought that's nice to just share it with more people, what's actually going on our minds, because this beast of stage and performing seems to be kind of a beast for many people. But really, it's interesting to just talk it through and see what's really on there. I totally agree that this is something to talk about because it's normal. It is, regardless of what we think. And just like you said so rightly, it's not. I think we tend to think that if I am anxious, or if I'm nervous, if I don't want to go on that stage, I am not kind of worthy of performing, I'm not good enough. But really the truth is that the most famous pianists, heart of it's good, they all really suffered from same thing as we do, So it's not something that we should be ashamed of, I think. And another thing is that it's not only about musicians, certainly not only about pianists like we are. It's I think, if we say it's performance anxiety, that doesn't necessarily mean music performance. It's anyone, speakers, politicians, even sportsmen or sportswomen who have to, produce some kind of result right there at this time. I think it affects all of us. You asked about the particular experience that I had. So there were a number of cases. It was especially, I think, evident during my time at the conservatoire, when I would go on the stage, and every time it wouldn't go as I would have wanted it to go, or not necessarily that I would stop or things would terribly fall apart or something, but I could never perform the way I felt I could, So with time, I was getting more and more fed up. I was just simply fed up with it. And there was this particular instance when I practiced crazily a lot. It was, I think, Beethoven's Second Concerto, and it was a performance class. So for those who don't know what that is, it's kind of a mock concert, if you want, where students are there in the audience and we are kind of performing it and we are discussing what happened. Anyway, it was a performance class, not even a real concert.
For a moment, the performance classes are very often much scarier than the stage because you're getting and everybody, the only people listening to you are people who actually know what you're doing and everything that's going wrong or right as well.
Exactly, yeah. And you're most often you're not absolutely ready for the concert just yet, because it's supposed to be your learning process, right? The performance class. So the piece is not necessarily totally polished and you're not necessarily totally confident with it. But having said that, the piece I was doing, I practiced really a lot. I know it backwards and forwards. And yet, when I went on the stage and I was playing with my teacher, I just couldn't play. I mean, I physically couldn't move my fingers. Later, I looked at the recording of that, because we normally get those classes recorded. I could not believe. I mean, I was like, is that me there? I could literally not play a scale. I couldn't, like, my fingers were getting locked, if you wish, or paralyzed, or whatever is the word for that. And I was like, okay, I do have a problem. Okay. So that was a point when I really got fed up. And I think that was a point when I stopped denying that to myself as well. So you asked what I did. Well, I still didn't know what to do. What I did is I went home, I called my mum on Skype, and I said, I'm coming back for a week. And could you book a session with a psychologist, please? And that was it. I got my tickets, I went back home. That's what I did. Of course, this one session with the psychologist couldn't help. And of course, it didn't help at all. But it was the feeling that, right, I am starting to do something about this, that thought itself helped. So that's my experience. Maybe it sounded a bit extreme, but
no, I don't think that's extreme at all, to be honest. I think psychologists, or even just speaking to family and friends about what you're going through, speaking to somebody, your teacher, that this is an issue for me. I think it's an important step to take. And your teachers usually understand because they've been through the same thing, and very often have dealt with it silently, and they probably have a lot of good advice to give. So I think for me, I think, I don't know, the very, very first performance I gave in conservatoire in the performance class was like a deal breaker for me. I just knew it was an issue from the beginning, and everything would fall apart. And I remember going through a week of not a week, I think it was a couple of weeks, because I played the same. I remember it was one movement from a Bach partita, not even like some 30-minute sonata or something. It was a 5-minute piece, and I kept breaking apart. So it was not just one performance class, it was 2, 3, 4, I don't know how many. By the end of it, I was like, can I even perform? Like, is this, um and I think at that point I started to started to branch out and see what could possibly be the problem, or what could possibly be a solution.
Can I ask you what was actually happening? Was it just memory slips, or when you say kept falling apart, that means you couldn't technically play it? What was the expression within yourself?
So I think I was okay at that point, because I mean, I played it in class and my teacher had fixed everything. It was fine. Like, I was playing it fine. In the practice rooms, when you call someone over just before your performance class, and I was able to play it to my teachers, to my friends. But the moment I walked out onto stage, I think the first thing that hit me though was the lighting. And I sat at the piano, and there was a shadow on the piano, and I didn't know where's my first note. You have that moment of, what is this instrument? I don't even know what,
what am I doing here?
Since I was 7 years old, but I don't recognize the instrument anymore. And that moment of panic. But then, I mean, I played, but I think, on hindsight, it was probably that particular piece, and that particular everything that fell apart at that time was a preparation error on my side. Because with certain composers, and Bach included, how I prep now I have so many more years of experience, I prep very differently for Bach than I do the other composers, because it's very easy to fall apart in Bach.
Yes, on the same topic of Bach, I just remembered really when you were talking about it. I had this experience back at the music school when I was, I don't even know how old, but still a child. And it was some sort of a test concert. We used to have these, like, it's a kind of a concert, but you are getting a mark. So it's kind of a test. And anyway, so I had to play for it. I didn't kind of have a choice whether I play or not. I had to play for it because it was part of a schooling program. And I was supposed to do Bach's, I think it was a fugue, or it was maybe an invention or something. And I wasn't quite ready. I just didn't know it well enough just yet. I wasn't yet very confident with it. And I knew it. It wasn't some kind of psychological issue at that point. I just knew it. I wasn't quite yet prepared. But I mean, I went and played. And I did stop. I mean, I did forget some bits. I did pick it up. Nothing disastrous has happened. But for me, I mean, I forgot the thing while being on the stage. I had to stop and pick it up again. For me, that was like, no, this is not happening ever again. And from that point, I made kind of two promises for myself. One is I will never, ever, whatever happens, go on the stage if I'm not prepared. Like, do whatever you want to me. I'm not going on the stage if I'm not prepared. Of course, I just made sure I'm prepared for the rest of my life, but that didn't help apparently. And the second thing is that I will make sure I know it from memory, backwards and forwards, in the way I could write it out if I had to. And that includes Bach. And I should really knock on the wood, but I don't think I ever had a memory lapse since then on the stage, which might surprise you actually when I say it now. I had other problems, a lot of other problems, but this particular one I didn't, because I would learn the piece so well that I would just feel, I would feel comfortable with that. I would be all right. Even if it's Bach, I would learn Bach so that I could play every voice separately, each of the hands separately, combinations of voices combined separately, or I could put them together, not looking at the score from memory, second and third or second and fourth or something, absolutely random things. I could play, with one finger or something, ridiculous things. And that helped. But see, I think it's all kind of in our heads, because I made myself believe that memory is not a problem for me. I was kind of comfortable with that, so it never was a problem. But then what I kind of got myself into believing that technique is a problem for me. For some reason, I started thinking technique is a problem for me, so it became a problem.
Right. No, it makes a lot of sense. I think it is in the head to a large extent, nerves definitely, for sure. But I think some things which aid you, so you can't really, I think before you go out onto stage and you're already nervous, there's no point telling somebody don't be nervous, because that's just going to make you more nervous about being nervous. And then it's like the snowball effect of, and all you can think about at that point are your nerves, and you're not thinking about the music. You're not thinking about what needs to be done,
Yes. Oh, sorry to interrupt you, but if you're not nervous and you start being nervous about the fact you're not nervous, because you think like, oh, I'm not nervous.
I should be nervous. Yes, that's another one. But I think majorly what has played into improving the situation for me has just been experience, about my own particular brand of nerves, like what goes wrong for me. I think different things go wrong for different people. And when I came in, when I started like seriously pursuing music, I had not as much training previously. So I had a lot of catch up work to do. And I was very inexperienced compared to most of the people around me. And of course, that meant I had a lot more failures. And I think it took a little time for me to really understand that I had to make big mistakes to make big progress. So at some point I started to accept that things are going to go wrong. I can't have everything go right, and I just have to learn from my mistakes. And that's why I'm studying. I'm not saying I'm a professional, I'm studying music at that point. And I think the way I prepare pieces changed so much because of my nerves. In fact, if there's something I'm thankful to my nerves for, it's that it's developed me as a musician so much. Like I've had no choice but to do it. So I think if you're prepared, like if you, like you say, like know your piece backwards and forwards, then at least you can take out the whole memory slip issue. You can pull that out of the equation. That's one less thing that can go wrong. I personally had physical tremors in the beginning, which died off after some time. Like my hands used to shake, and sometimes my foot used to shake. I remember there was one time when I was supposed to play a Chopin nocturne, and my foot was shaking so much I couldn't control my pedal. So I played the whole nocturne with no pedal.
It was a very sophisticated technique of pedaling, the vibrato pedaling. Not
Yeah,
everyone can.
like there was no control whatsoever, and it sounded awful. I mean, of course, it's Chopin nocturne without pedal.
It's so interesting how differently it affects us, isn't it? Most of us, I think, we get those physical symptoms of, of the stage anxiety, performance anxiety. I think the common one is sweaty hands or cold hands, and yeah, all kinds of shivers and things. But I think I know these physical ones are very hard to deal with as well. But I think what is happening in our minds is probably harder to deal with. It's probably harder to control, don't you think?
Definitely.
Because that affects us as well. And the bad thing is that no one can tell, because if you're shaking, if you're sweaty, if you're, I don't know, pale or something, at least people can tell. So it's kind of legit, right? Whereas when it's in your head, people saying, well, you're fine. She must be fine. She's always fine. Look at her. She's so happy, and you're going crazy in your mind.